3, 2. Hello and welcome to the Cape and Cowl podcast. This is episode 8 now. Officially 2 full months of episodes, so that's pretty sweet. Thank you all for joining me on this journey. It has been educational and a lot of fun for sure. Not sure how long today's episode is going to be. We're kind of at the precipice of a lot of new stuff to talk about, but also there's a chance that this upcoming patch could be getting delayed slightly, and I don't think it was worth holding up the podcast for. We can always talk a lot more next week. There's no rules saying these episodes have to be a certain length or anything like that. But let's hop right on into our topics. The first thing I wanted to talk about, and this was confirmed in the Discord server yesterday, as well as the patch announcement, crafting is here almost. So basically, the patch that we are waiting for, I am recording this on Wednesday, September 20th. The current expectation or word from the developers is they are aiming for delivering tomorrow, September 21st, which is my birthday, by the way. But obviously, things could happen that may get pushed another day, another couple days, who knows. But the most important point of the matter is that crafting is here. And a little bit earlier than I was anticipating. I was expecting at least another patch or so. So they are delivering ahead of at least my anticipated schedule. So that's pretty sweet. As far as details about crafting, I can't talk about too much without delving into data mined information and or unconfirmed information. But I will at least leave it at this. The values that I have seen in the game files, when compared to something like a standard crafting system, let's say like Hearthstone's, in general, the system for Dual Force is going to be more generous in almost all scenarios than Hearthstone's crafting system, and at worst, in some areas, it will be on par. Again, that is if the values that I've seen wind up being the official values. There are, things can change over time. There's no saying that the values are necessarily locked in or not. But assuming that the values stay somewhat consistent to what I've seen, we should be looking at a more generous system than Hearthstone. Other little tidbits. I believe right now a leader is currently slated to be less expensive in materials than an ultimate card, but more expensive than a super rare, so it'll sit kind of in between that range. And deluxe crafting ranges from 10 times more expensive-ish for a common to about 2 times more expensive for an ultimate. So very, very player-friendly in the deluxe crafting values as well. So again, those values may change, and everything I could have just said may wind up being wrong, but in general, everything is looking really solid and very exciting to see crafting entering the game. I know it's something that the free-to-play players have been wanting, and rightfully so, and I think it is an important thing to finally lock in, because one of the main value propositions for why you should choose Dual Force as a game from the developers has been their desire to have a very free-to-play player-friendly game, and one of the aspects of that free-to-play player-friendly game is the ability to craft mini-sets rather than needing to spend the money on them if you either don't have the money or just choose not to spend the money on mini-sets. So being able to craft those, not just, the Shazams and the Green Arrows that have been out for a while, but, the more recent Blue Beetle mini-set that's in the current subscription, and whatever happens next, free-to-play players have not had any way to access those cards. So being able to craft those moving forward, I think, is a key pillar in showing that it's not just talk from the developers, that they are actually backing up those words. And upon crafting being released, assuming everything works the way they've told us it will work, it will kind of be them planting their flag of saying this is going to be a free-to-play player-friendly game. And, things will change up and down for the economy over time, but as long as they stick to those core principles, like crafting what normally would be paid-only cards, I think is a very important step in that direction. Kind of on the subject of crafting, since the list has been advanced forward a bit more, I wanted to retouch on the developer roadmap that came out on August 30th, so just about 3 weeks ago. And this was the developer roadmap of saying basically how the next X number of weeks and patches are going to go, what the, checkpoints are for this phase in the game's development. Now, at the time, the subscription had not been released yet, so subscription Minisets Weekly Comics was one of the first steps on that path, and those have since been delivered. The next major step on that path was crafting, which should be getting delivered, any day now. And then the final step on this phase of our journey was launching early access on Steam and the Epic Game Store. Now, my anticipation, my expectation is that they will try to hit that early access launch within the next 1 or 2 patches. So think, early August to early mid-August, not August, October. That's my guess. I have no confirmation or, information from the developers to back that guess up. That's just my guess in general. I don't know what the next phase of the developer roadmap is. I hope we get an updated roadmap at that point. And I'll talk a little bit in a few minutes about the kinds of things that I'm hoping to see post early access in terms of, what I think the game still needs. But yeah, I expect the early access to come to Steam and Epic within the next patch or 2. I don't think they're going to wait a super long time. As much as I do think that they should take at least a patch or 2 to really iron out more and more of the bugs and get the client performing better and better, I think that there more than likely is going to be business implications and obligations that they need to meet. And whether that is a deadline from their publisher or whatever, I am assuming that there is some level of obligation that they are required to meet, and to meet those obligations, they will be launching within the next 1 or 2 patches, is my guess. In a perfect world, they take 1 to 2, maybe even 3 patches of just purely bug fixes, maybe minor balance changes, and then once everything's in a really iron out perfect state, then you can go do your early access release. Because my fear, and I think a lot of people's fear, and it's a justified fear, is if you launch on Steam and Epic and there happens to be, major bugs or performance issues, or, the European servers aren't sorted out and things like that, you could potentially risk having a poor first impression on players. And you only really get 1 chance at a good first impression. So if that does not go well, it could really hinder the game's growth and development over time. So I think a lot of people are just hoping for a smooth and strong launch when we go into Steam and Epic, especially because it'll be a lot of players' first time even hearing about the game, let alone playing it. So I think it's really important to try to nail that the best you can. And if there are business implications or business obligations or deadlines that are required to be met, I just really hope between this crafting patch launch and whenever that theoretical deadline is, that they have enough time to fix a lot of the minor things that need to be fixed. I will say, in general, over the last couple weeks, last couple months, the developers have done a great job at fixing bugs and clearing a lot of things out of the way. I think most of the major issues have been addressed, but I still think that there is a lot of minor polish that can be done, and whether that's, making cards in hand easier to grab, or certain animations a little more fluid, or, things like that. There's a lot of minor things that could be done that can kind of add up over time, that maybe don't give players the biggest sense of value if they were to be working, but when they're not working, they can kind of stick out like a sore thumb. So I think as much of those minor things that you can clean up, the better, to kind of really put together your full package, your full, offering to your player base. I think that is really important, and I'm very curious to see how the next couple weeks go. And as far as that early access, there's a couple things that I want to see on the next developer roadmap, at least, if not dates addressing. But I think one major thing that I would not blame them for wanting to get into early access for is, I am assuming, at least for the Steam release, I'm not sure about Epic, I don't really use the Epic Store, but I think one thing that they will have access to once they do release in Steam is the ability to replace Xsolla as their payment provider. And I think that is a big reason for them to possibly want to go into release on those stores. I know, at least personally, the first time I spent money on Dual Force and the Xsolla browser page opened up, I was a little sketched out, to be honest. I thought it was like a fake site. I thought my credit card information was about to get stolen. So when I had the option to use PayPal, I made sure to do that since it's a little bit safer. And I know kind of a looming potential issue is for the monthly subscriptions that you signed up on through Xsolla. The only way to cancel your subscription is either to reach out to Dual Force support, or if you saved your Xsolla email, there is a little link to click in there to cancel your subscription. So there's not a really easy way to cancel your subscription at the moment. And when you sign up, you are auto-enrolled for renewal monthly. So my expectation is when the new month rolls around, there's going to be a fair amount of people who didn't realize that they were signed up to be auto-renewed. And they're also not going to really know where or how to cancel if they choose to cancel. It's going to result in some frustrated players, I am sure. And I'm sure it's frustrating for the developers as well. I don't think Xsolla's providing the greatest customer experience. So being able to kind of circumvent them and fall back on Steam's payment platform would be a welcome addition and welcome change to the game, and one that I'm hoping that they are able to accomplish for sure. Another thing that I'm hoping to see in the next developer roadmap, and this is less a line item in the developer roadmap and more just something I want to see in general, is I want to see them kind of settle into their content groove. Their last couple patches have been really large, major patches, daily login rewards, quest system, subscription system, now crafting. There's potential another patch for, early access into Epic and Steam. But, some of these patches have gotten delayed, rightfully so, because of how gigantic some of these patches are. Once all of these major systems have been released, I'm really looking forward to the team kind of hitting a content groove, is what I'll call it. And what I mean by that is, as the weekly patches are going to continue because the comics need to come out every week. But once all of these major systems are implemented, I'm hoping the development team can get into a rhythm of, develop this comic, test this comic, release the comic, and alongside that, we're gonna, fix a couple bugs each week, and, maybe once or twice a month, we'll get some balance changes. Maybe one minor balance change, one major balance change per month. And as they can do that enough times, they can really get themselves into a groove where, hopefully they don't need to work extra hours or work late. I know the development team across the board has been doing that lately to make sure these features get completed. I am ultra appreciative of that. As a developer myself, nobody wants to work extra, but I do really appreciate the effort that the development team is putting in to make sure that these features get completed. So that's very awesome, and I do appreciate that, but I hope that is not needed moving forward after these systems go live, or, at least is needed way less often. And the content groove will just allow, more easily repeatable results, whether that is fewer bugs or whether that is, the scope of either balance changes, bug fixes, whatever, can be increased, and maybe they can even spend more and more time getting ahead. I just think once these big systems are out of the way, opening the door to kind of hitting that flow state would be really handy for the developers, and I hope that that's something they can get to. Another thing I think is very big that I'm not expecting anytime soon, but once we go live with this early access, I'm hoping we at least get some information on, is a mobile client. Now, I am not expecting that anytime in the immediate short term, but I'm just curious in terms of what the time frame is going to be for a mobile client in general. Not so much that I even want a mobile client that badly, although I would like to have a mobile client so I can play even more Dual Force. There's times where I don't want to sit in my office on my PC and I'd really like to play some games, so sign me up for the mobile client. But more so, I want to see a mobile client because it's kind of needed to hit the number of players that a game like this wants to hit in order to stay profitable, do well, succeed, have a large player base, you know, all of those items. There's just a lot of people who don't want to invest or get even try a card game if there's not a mobile client for them to play on the go. So having that be a major item in the next roadmap in terms of, even if it's not going to be the next, you know, couple months, saying, even if I had to see like, you know, end of 2024 for targeting mobile client, obviously a year is a long time, but just having a time frame would be awesome, and just knowing what to expect on that front. So really hoping to see some stuff like that. And then after that, or depending on that, the final step is that true marketing push. Now, we've seen it a bit. We've seen some Dual Force advertisements in the back of comic books. They've had some, you know, convention sponsorships with larger streamers. But there's been some marketing, but I don't think it has been their major marketing push quite yet. Now, in a perfect world, let's say the mobile client was 3-4 months out. You would wait those 3-4 months in early access, release your mobile client, and then do your marketing push. But that might not be a realistic outcome depending on what the time frame for the mobile client is. It might wind up being the case that we get a marketing push more for just PC-centered clients for now, and then maybe a secondary marketing push when mobile launches. But just in general, I'm hoping that once the game is in a stable state that the developers are happy with, all of these systems are implemented and bug-free, we're in that content group getting comics every week, mini sets every month, things like that. Once we've hit that state, it's the perfect time to kind of just say, here you go, world, look at this package that we've delivered for DC Dual Force. We think it's an awesome value proposition. We think it's an awesome game. Come check it out. So really hoping to see some stuff like that. Those are my major milestones, I would say, for the next phase of the developer roadmap. What I'm hoping to see is, in general, early access replacing the payment provider and making it a more friendly system to operate in. That content group by the developers, less crunch, just more kind of cruising. Mobile release timeframe, even if it's not soon, just a time frame in general. And then finally, that marketing push. Now, real quick, before we transition on into the next group of topics or the next things, but honestly, I don't have a ton more to talk about today. So like I said, it's probably going to be a smaller episode. I did want to shoot out a quick plug for a friend of the podcast. Obi-John is going to be starting streaming soon for Dual Force. That is going to be starting on Friday, September 29th. So